Is this your first session or your second session? Awesome. You're game on today. Well, my name is Erna Gross, and I am the CEO of an organization called Asante Africa Foundation. And our collective group, we decided we would tackle this really challenging, sometimes confusing thing called partnerships. Specifically, at the front of the room, we have Tiffany Drake, who is from the Global Girls Alliance from the Obama Foundation. We have Mosala Phillip, who has flown all the way from South Africa to be here with us. He's the Associate Director from Procter & Gamble, and he was one of the original visionaries of the Always brand launch for the girls program. And then we have Patricia Mugai, who has come all the way from Kenya to be here today. And she runs all the programs in Kenya around our girls programs at Asante Africa Foundation. We would like this conversation to be highly interactive, so we really look forward to questions. We really would like to approach this conversation around how do we put the child, the girl child, at the center as well as the boy child, and how do we collectively use our strengths to create a partnership that's going to accelerate all of our efforts, leveraging the best of each of us, and how do we create systemic change, whether that's policy, finance, community, programmatic. And if you have any questions, we'll allow everyone to introduce their organizations and why they're excited to be with you today. And then I'll ask a few prompts, and then it'll be open season for questions and conversation. Does that sound like a plan? So before we do introductions, I think we would like to know who you are. I would love to know how many of you are from a nonprofit organization, okay? And are others of you from policy and advocacy organizations?
Yes, we do both.
Both, okay. Which group have I left out that you have not raised your hands yet? A donor. Funders, we love funders. How many of you are in an active partnership today? How many of you would like to be in active partnerships today? Awesome. How many of you have been in a partnership that didn't go so well? Okay. So we all have something to contribute. So with that, I'm going to take a seat, and I am going to turn the virtual mic over to Tiffany Drake to introduce herself, and we'll work our way down the line.
Thank you, and thank you for being here and moderating.
Sure.
So my name is Tiffany Drake. I'm the Executive Director of the Global Girls Alliance at the Obama Foundation. We just launched our program in October on International Day of the Girl. I have been with Mrs. Obama working on this issue since early 2015 when we launched Let Girls Learn at the White House. Following our program at the White House, Mrs. Obama decided this is something that she wanted to continue doing in the future in her life outside of government. And so we spent about a year trying to incubate and figure out what should we do next, and is this still a place that we can play, and where are the gaps that we can fill with what we do best as a foundation and utilizing her in her role as former First Lady. So we launched the Global Girls Alliance, and our program is focused on empowering adolescent girls around the world to reach their full potential through education. And so we use the number 98 million as the number of adolescent girls out of school around the world, and that's really who we're focused on. And our program is really built on trying to use our convening power, our ability to generate public awareness to drive action, and then also to mobilize young people to support their peers, to learn more about this issue, and then to take action to support them. And so those are kind of the three areas that we're focused upon. We are also really honed in on grassroots leaders and small nonprofit organizations around the world. So we have found that there are gaps there that we can fill as a program. And so we've launched a Global Girls Education Network to connect grassroots leaders around the world working on this issue, to help provide them with skills and training and access to resources so that they can scale their work. We've taken that a step further and launched a fundraising platform to help support these organizations. So we are vetting them, we are seeking them, putting them up, and we are then trying to solicit funding from the public through a lot of our efforts, but then also working on partnerships. So to help fund these organizations and the projects, we are seeking partnerships, and we're actively engaged with a number of partners and potential partners to do that as we build this and go forward. And we hope to have an active voice in this issue going forward at all different levels to continue to move the needle forward collectively with everyone together, so that this is not something that continues as time goes on. So that's why we're here, and I'm excited to be here and talk to all of you.
Fantastic.
Hello everybody, my name is Musala Phillips. I'm Associate Director at Procter & Gamble, responsible for marketing and commercial business, and I think I'm a strange thorn amongst the roses, in a sense that one, I'm a man speaking about girl issues, which is very important, and I think it's about time that we get men into this conversation. And secondly, I'm a marketer. So I'm not in communications or anything, but I'm not traveling alone. I've got my colleague Joyce, who's heading up the Always Keeping Girls in School program with Asante in Kenya. So if we have more questions about Kenya, she's the lady. So we have a program in South Africa. One of the brands that I look after is Always, and the key purpose for the brand is to advocate and empower women, right, in order to live for their full potential. That's what the Always brand stands for. That's what it's aiming to do. And then we launched the Always Keeping Girls in School program, both in South Africa and Kenya, to address an issue that is very common in the continent, of how puberty, and when you start with the menstrual issues, and having a program, menstrual hygiene management, in terms of how we help girls. Because really unfair, not right, for girls to be disadvantaged just for being girls. That there comes a time of the month, they will miss 3 to even a full week of school while boys continue going to school, right? And you add up those days right through the schooling careers, they matter and they impact them quite negatively. The concentration in school, et cetera, is not the same. They're worried about, they're staying themselves, etc., while the boys are sitting in class and concentrating. So we want to tackle this issue because it's not fair for girls to be disadvantaged this way. And it's not only just about pad donation, it's really coming with menstrual hygiene education, tackling confidence. Because one thing that we've realized and we've seen is that when young girls go into puberty, their confidence plummets. Some of you are aware of the Like a Girl campaign that we ran. And it's expected to address that issue. So it's not only just about product, it's really about helping girls through that time of puberty to make sure the confidence is up there. Because once it plummets, it has other implications and issues. And as a company, we partner with organizations like yourselves, because we can find things that you guys are good at doing, and there's certain things that we can do. And as we get into a discussion, we'll be elaborating and discussing those. So that's why I'm here, and I'm glad actually we're having this conversation, and that's why for Procter & Gamble, such partnerships are so important. Hand over to you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Patricia Mwigai. I work with Asante Africa Foundation in Kenya.
Can you speak up, please?
Yes. Oh, sorry. So my name is Patricia Mwigai. I work in Kenya. I work with Asante Africa Foundation. Asante Africa Foundation has been there for the last 11 years. We work with marginalized communities, and especially girls who are facing social exclusion, and where patriarchy is such a common problem, where men get to decide about your body, about you're going to school. So we can't promise the young girls that we can take away their problems, but we can prepare them to solve the problems by themselves. So in partnership with P&G, we have a menstrual health hygiene education and a curriculum that we're implementing with adolescent girls in primary schools. And we're hoping to have a transition rate improve from a certain level to a higher level, so that we see girls moving from grade 1 to grade 2, from grade 6 to grade 8, and then transition to high school. And then when they go to high school, we prepare them for the job market, and we also prepare them to become job creators. so they don't have to just look for the white collar jobs which are not forthcoming. So in this kind of partnership that we are doing, we are also partnering with communities because we don't work in isolation. So when PNG is part of the puzzle, then we're working with communities. The school, in Kenya they are called BOM, is Board of Management. We normally have conversations with them and tell them that we are implementing this girls project. We need your support in terms of, after 1 year down the line, we need continuity. How do we work around it? We also work with the Ministry of Education just to get the support that is needed from the government. And we also, in Kenya, we have a policy that gives guidelines on how to implement sexual reproductive health education in Kenya. So basically, that's what we are doing. We have other programs like a scholarship program just to ensure that young, bright girls have access to education. And like we have Mosala here with today, we have boy inclusion, just to make sure that the boys become allies to the girls. And also when they go back to their families, they're able to tell their mothers and their fathers why the girls need the space, why they need the education, and also they need the facilities. Thank you.
I will just share one of my most favorite quotes that speaks to the conversation about boy inclusion. There is a very, very powerful woman who's an investment banker out of London but now lives in Kenya, and she has a quote that says, "The future belongs to courageous women and enlightened men." And her name is Herta von Stiegel. And when I think about the ecosystem of how we all tackle complicated problems, it requires all of us. So in the form of partner,
that quote, please?
yes,
Would you repeat the quote?
yes. The future belongs to courageous women and enlightened men. Yes, and then Erna's addendum to that is it takes a very strong, confident man to stand next to his strong, confident woman. So that's mine. Right, to me?
Great.
So, going back to the partnership conversation, part of it, what I would love for us to just tackle now is we're all seeking partnership, but I would love to get your perspective on why a partnership and what do you get out of it when what are you looking for and what are you getting out of it? And why don't we start with Masala?
Very clear. All right. So I guess we'll engage into a partnership because there is something that you cannot do well that other person can do well, right? And it really begins with that. It begins with understanding the strengths.
Can you speak louder? It's really hard to hear.
Sorry, I will.
Probably if you stand up at the mic. it
The
would
Here,
mic.
help
let me
a lot.
grab the mic.
Yes.
Okay, now we have to assume we know how to turn it on. We'll just bring it over to you.
Cool.
There we go.
All right. So
Much better.
much better. So the partnership will begin by understanding what the other party can bring in. So from our side, as a business, as a brand, we want to be part of the conversation and the solutions that impact our customers, our consumers, right? And we want to not only just make sales, which are important, but also long-term have sustainable societies and communities that we live in. And we want to engage in social opportunities that are there. But however, we are marketers, we make products, and we try to sell. But for us to be able to do that, we don't have the know-how. We don't have the understanding at a grassroots level how to do it. And we don't have the people who have the knowledge, who have the skills to do it on ground. Policymakers, etc., etc. And hence that's why these partnerships are important. What we can bring to the table, we can help with product, we can help with education on menstrual flow specifically because we've been engaged in this program and educating young girls for such a long time. We have the know-how and obviously the funds, right? So we have access to those. So the partnerships that we look for, it's people who can help us to go on ground in terms of hands, in terms of brain power to think together to find a win-win in a marriage, in what we're trying to do. And most importantly, also the values, right? That we share the same values and the same ethics as those who will be the guiding us on this journey, that we don't decide to jump off later because we share in common values, right? So yeah.
Good. Tiffany?
So we can't do it alone. I think we all know that, right? You can't run a nonprofit alone. You can't even, as a former First Lady, run this whole program and save the world alone. I mean, you can't. So we look at partners as the key in every sector to this space, but private sector specifically. We look at it not just about funding, it's also about public awareness and to drive action. So we have collectively over time looked to find partners that can not only just write us a check, but can do something creative and interesting and help us collectively tell the story of this issue, that help to really raise awareness of this. So it's not just kind of quietly writing a check, which is also nice, but also really trying to find interesting ways of doing that and of trying to really spread the word. We've worked with partners before that have never given us a specific dive out into the field, but they've done these really fascinating partnerships that help drive public awareness to then drive funding from the public toward the project or to the program. So we're very open across the board, and we're not trying to specifically hone in on who just has the most money, which I don't think is valuable. I also think you can bring partners in that can do a lot of different interesting things that might then turn into something else in the future as you work together. And I think we're also looking for partners that similarly, I just have similar values, that are very passionate about this space and are not looking just to partner with us because of our brand, and that we want to make sure we collectively each get the same out of it. So while we each have our own reasons for partnering, it is very important for us that the partner we're bringing in is truly passionate about this issue and does want to tell the story about this issue, and is in it for the long run. We're not looking for, in the White House, we were, it was a little different. It was like, how much can we get in 2 years and just, we'll move on. But now it's more about sustainability and how can we bring partners to work with us that really want to collectively do this over time. And we think that our value add here is really that we are in it for the long haul now, which is amazing. It feels good to know that there's this program that's going to be sustained, and we are trying to collectively convene grassroots leaders and pull the partners in so that we can make the connections from one to another, and kind of serve as that role as convener. So it's important for us to find the partners. It's important for us to find partners that want to do this for the long term, and then to also find the smaller, the nonprofits on the ground that are doing this and that we can kind of match together.
Awesome.
Okay, so Mosala mentioned about working with grassroots organizations to help them achieve their goals and objectives for the Always Keeping Girls Equal project. So Asante Africa being the boots on the ground, we are working with the local communities and with schools.
Raise the microphone.
They can't hear you in the back.
Okay. So I'm saying that Asante Africa is the boots on the ground. So with the support that we're getting from PNG, with the menstrual health hygiene curriculum, with the supply of sanitary pads, then we have this curriculum that we're taking to the schools. It means that we're able to go faster, we have the resources that we need, we have the support, and then we're speaking in one voice. So if it's a matter of policy, maybe dialogue with the Ministry of Education, I'll not go alone, Asante Africa will not go alone, PNG will not go alone. We look for other like-minded organizations that need to drive a policy conversation, and we go together and speak in one voice, which has been very instrumental in our work. So basically we are in it because we're able to go faster in our work, and also because we can't do it all together. We need each other, because your strength and her strength, then we become one strong voice. Thank you.
So hang on to the microphone just for a moment, and let's talk a moment about what does win-win look like. Because all of us in the room will have people approach us to want to, quote, be a partner. But how do you decide who you're gonna partner with against what does win-win look like for your organization?
Yes, so for us, having a win-win partnership, it means that we're able to achieve the set targets and the goals. For instance, the goals of this project for always keeping girls in schools, they align with Asante Africa's goals for helping girls transition to from one level of education to the next. We're also making sure that we do not have girls dropping out of schools because they lack the necessary sanitary pads, so that they don't miss school when they are on their menses. So, and when you look at what PNG is trying to achieve with this project, it's the same as Asante Africa want to achieve. So basically what I'm saying is that we know it's a win-win when we're able to achieve that. Secondly, when we have mutual respect for each other during the implementation, we speak with one voice. When you have differences, we are willing to get back to the table and see where we didn't go well and how we can do better. And other than that, we have trust for each other, that PNG, probably with their offices in New York, in Nairobi, and Asante Africa being how many miles? So many miles away, they can trust our work and they know that we are doing what we said we're going to do and we'll be able to deliver.
And we'll just work our way back down here.
Yeah. All right, in terms of the win-win for us, I think zooming in as the topic is about partnership and specifically focusing on girls and women. So our key pillar program is always keeping girls in school. Now, we're looking for three things. It's a social impact, it's the focus areas on puberty, confidence in education, access to products, tackling social barriers, and also in terms of the execution, and I'll get into this. Let me just get into the details of each and every one of them. So, social impact for us is building girls' confidence at puberty, and building their confidence. And this is not just only narrow. And so, for example, if you're looking for a partner in this space, we're not looking for a partner who's only like focused on one narrow thing. Let's just make an example that they know how to soccer or it's netball, where it's only niche and focused. It's a partner that has breadth in terms of understanding of the social issues, because just giving pets is not sufficient, right? Because it's much more of a bigger societal issues, right? If there's issues that is tabooed in society, that when a girl is menstruating, no one should get close to them, right? So giving pets will not resolve that issue. So it's really a much more broader issue. And I know in Kenya, the program has more breadth, that it also goes into financial help and education for girls. So it's much broader than that. So once we give girls holistically, as the mission and the thing that we're trying to tackle is a confidence dip at that phase and that puberty level. So it's really trying to understand in each country what are those nuances that we have. So we're looking for that in the partner in terms of they're able to understand holistically for us this social that we want to address. Two, that the focus areas, as we said, is puberty confidence in education. And that's why our program is mainly focusing on schools around grade 6 area. In Kenya, the program has there's different layers of it. There's I can say the super duper big program, and then there's a small scales, which the big program covers about 120,000, and in South Africa it's about 130,000. And in South Africa, the program already covers almost about 100 schools that we go to in 6 provinces in the country. And that covers about 20% of the grade 6 school. And then we have a big program that covers already 60%. So almost 80% of grade 6 schools are reached through our school program. That's an important thing, because we believe for us to give everybody confidence and for young girls to have the power to march on these external factors, education is the key. And hence that's why we're focusing on education, and we're focusing on partnering with partners that are focused on the space and getting into schools, because that's the most important for us. So it's in schools and tackling the social barriers, as I've mentioned. And then on the other piece is also looking at their capability, right? Are they able to expand with us? Do they have the human resource that will be able to, as they grow, they'll be able to grow with us? And the management is a sound management in terms of capabilities, in terms of financial acumen, in terms of also ethically, right? There's no secret that operating in the continent, it comes with its old ills of bribery and everything else, etc., and stuff like that. That it's important that we have partners that understand the importance of doing things right. Even if it means delaying, let it delay, but we'll do what's right all the time. And it gets really tricky, right? You want to get access to schools, etc. So, and for some organizations, because you can get into partnership with a big company and you don't want to disappoint, you want to show that you've delivered. And the short corner, taking shortcuts is, you can put an envelope. But we want partners who will come back to us and say, P&G, you've agreed to do 1, 2, 3, but unfortunately we'll not be able to do it because we will not do 1, 2, 3, right? And the program will not be delivered as expectation. So that's what we're looking for when we talk about win-win for us, specifically for this program, which I believe the principles in we apply right across.
For us, it's, again, going back to just making this mutually beneficial. We aren't just trying to take from the partner and just say thank you. We really want to make sure it's beneficial to the partner as well. That's why I mentioned making sure that this is aligned with their goals and their mission, so that it does benefit them as well to be aligned with us. And I think the other thing is just making sure that we approach the partnership as open and honestly as possible about what we are each bringing to the table here, and setting the stage right from the beginning. We don't want to go into a partnership with different expectations on either side. So while we might be thinking that, a partner might be coming to us thinking, okay, if we do this with you, then we're going to get this out of that, and that's just not possible. So we've established a framework with our program and within the Obama Foundation to, approach partners and to discuss, so that it's very clear. And while that can be flexible and moldable, it is very much kind of like, if you're going to partner with us at different tiers, here's what this means. Here's what you will get from it. Here's what we can provide you. Everything from here's what you can say in a media release, all the way through, here's where we can kind of come in person to your XYZ. And from a sponsorship perspective, similarly, whether or not you're having a logo on the stage or you're going to have something appear in a book, instead of taking everything ad hoc, we're trying really hard to make sure that it's been laid out so that we can come from the very beginning and make sure the expectations are set, which I think is really important off the top. And then partners can decide if that makes sense for them, or if it doesn't, then that may not work. And then I think also just being open and flexible to the partnership. So going in, I try to also let the partner come to us and say, what is it you really want to do here? If you could do anything with us, what would it be? Because there might be a lot of things that I'm not even thinking about, whether or not a partner's coming to us to do a matching campaign or a roundup campaign, around Giving Tuesday, or something with a billboard, and they're going to do an emoji campaign online. I don't know. I'm just making things up. A lot of this we've done. But really being open to that and saying, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That actually might be really great, and you can use your resources as this partner in a way that I hadn't even thought of yet. So I think just being really open to partnerships and not just kind of making it all a one-size-fits-all approach. We're looking for this and that, and being open to kind of what comes from that is what we've had success.
I'll just share a very brief vignette around what a successful partnership looks like in a very deep rural community, around making sure we all know what the expectations are. In both deep rural Tanzania and Kenya, we look for synchronization between the head teacher, the headmaster, the parents who are on the governing board, and the leaders in the community. And in the culture where we, in the United States, typically we will discuss the money one-on-one behind a closed door. Well, what we've learned is right up front, we need to say, There are 10,000 USD that will be spent on this project. This is what our organization can contribute, which piece will you can contribute, and who from the community is going to manage this project. And typically, we have 3 signatories on all decisions: the head teacher, parent from the community, and the chief, or the third person would be Asante Africa. And what we find is when everybody knows what the amount is, everyone is check and balancing each other to where there doesn't have to be an outsider involved in any check and balance. And that's a very different cultural shift from how money is discussed and how the project is discussed. And when we do that right up front, we can go in periodically and do a reflections. What's not working? What is working? How would you like to change from here? So to the point of being flexible and adjustable, but still within the bumper rail guidelines. So it's just an example trying to drive home what a win-win looks like. Do any of you have additional criteria for when you're selecting a partner that you might like to share? Have we?
So the other thing that at Asante Africa Foundation we are doing, we have a fundraising policy that gives us guidelines on who should we partner with. For instance, are we willing to accept money just from anyone? For instance, the organizations who support terrorism. So is it in your fundraising policy that you can receive money from them and actually implement a project? So we have a filter for who gets to fund our projects, and even at the community level, because we work with community-based organizations and peer groups. So what are they known for, especially the youth groups? They could be a gang group, they could be anything. So our fundraising policy sets the guidelines on who we partner with. Yeah, thank you.
In addition to the points I've highlighted in terms of identifying win-win partnerships, I've highlighted on the Always program, what we also look for is history, right? What is the partner been able to do? Another piece as well is to understand who they've partnered with, right? And the status of those programs, and also the continuity of the team, right? People who have been there, how long they've been there, and how they manage it. And in cases where possible, also understanding the financial standing where possible. And that doesn't necessarily mean that people need to always come with a big track record, right? It's always one of those, like, you're applying for a job for the first time working and people asking for experience. You're like, but I don't have experience. How can I get it? So when they don't have the history, then understanding in terms of what they have today and what they're planning to do and their vision, etc., what they're trying to do. And also, most importantly, what Tiffany was highlighting as well is the creativity. Because also from their ideas, bring in, and also their current understanding of the market landscape, etc. So if someone doesn't have experience, they could have done their homework of understanding the challenges, etc. And say, okay, these are the barriers that I see, and this is how I'm planning to tackle them, right? And then you go and then let the water run through the pipes, and you'll see, right? But what I really want to stress, and that's super critical, is really the values and the principles, right? That those are critical, because if they're not matching, it will not work.
In addition to everything we've already said, and I second everything you just said from the other side, I think just the word partner, I think, is confusing to people. We use the word collaborator a lot, supporter. Sometimes partner is like, what does that really mean? And is that legal to even use that word? What are we really doing? So, but I look at the word partner as someone that is really close to you and you're working together. I don't expect an organization to turn over money to us and then just wash their hands of it and never ask for feedback on what happened with it. So I think knowing going in that this is a partnership. You are collectively trying to do something and achieve a goal, and I expect to have to go back to that partner, even if they're not asking me to, and provide results and explain what's happening with that money, and then provide them with that with the notion that we're hoping to continue this going forward. So not trying to make just a one and done thing. And for what we're doing, sometimes we can run into partners that really want their name in lights in a way, and that can happen. And so that can sometimes be something big and shiny, but then it's just one time, which was great for that one time, but how does that sustain in the future? So we really want to kind of put a pin in that as much as we can, and now more focus on sustainable partnerships for the future. And we have, similarly, we have prospect lists of organizations we've worked with in the past, organizations that have shown through their funding history that they're interested in this issue and they are passionate about it. Staff, board members, all the things that you said about making sure they're going to be around. But then also trying to kind of keep our eyes open for new opportunities, whether that's organizations that align because they're global, or that's women's brands that we think, you know what, this is actually kind of up and coming. They don't have anything they're really aligning with yet. Maybe they're interested, or maybe they've been funding domestic programming, but this is a big deal now, and more people understand that global issues for girls is important, and maybe we can make that case for them for the first time. And maybe the first conversation doesn't happen because they feel like they need to fund domestic STEM programs for girls in tech, which happens a lot. But maybe it will open their eyes, and then as someone else maybe comes on board, they are keen to do something like that. So I think just kind of not always just staying in the span of who's done it before, but also which is a P&G. We know P&G is in this space. We partnered when we launched with P&G. So that's a partner that we are confident in, and we know we'll keep doing this work. But there could be others that are out there that maybe no one has yet partnered with, so keeping open to those.
Awesome. As an organization, I will say that we sat down as a board. I'm the CEO of the organization. We sat down with our board and we put criteria to what is a partner, what is a subcontractor, what is a vendor, in some cases, the one and done, and on the upper level, what's a sponsor? And so for us, a partner is extremely different than what I would call a subcontractor. A subcontractor is we are executing work for you, where a partner is we are mutually aligned, we have mutually agreed goals, and in a lot of cases, just being clear on what that relationship dynamic is can really help manage some of the, I'll say, future potential conflict. So speaking of things that don't always go perfect, do any of you have a vignette of how you've managed getting a partnership where there might be a misunderstanding or miscommunication, managing that, identifying that, and probably in some cases having the courage to just work through it? Yes. Because that's the part nobody wants to talk about.
Literally, I'm laughing because we joked about being so close. That's literally the question I just wrote down.
Perfect.
So you were looking for a great question?
Yeah.
So
There you go.
There you go. Sorry.
Yes. I think I'm going to be using a lot of analysis about roses, right? So not everything all the time is rosy, right? Cool. I think the key thing to begin with, before you even decide to move forward, is really clarifying expectations, right? And understanding, what journey you guys are taking. So you need to have goals, right? And those goals need to be measurable, and also being able to be tracked, right? I'm a numbers guy, so I love numbers. I always tell people, in God we trust, for everyone else bring data. Right? So having measurable goals is very important, and I think also it gets very tricky in for these kind of programs of what are those measurable things that we're going to go for. Because if it's not measurable, then it's left for interpretation, and it's going to be problems. And how you measure it also needs to be at some level of independency in terms of how the data is collected and presented, so that everybody is in the same camp. Now, where I find that things have gone wrong, it's when someone thinks that actually it's a sprint, the other person thinks it's a marathon. and how you train for those and who's gonna start, etc. It's a very different ball game altogether. Deciding to have a marathon runner, from Kenya, they're the endurance who could run, but you put them next to Usain Bolt to do a sprint, they will lose, right? So you can take a great athlete and put them in the wrong job. And similarly, that's what I've realized, that where things have gone wrong is where you take a wrong partner and put them in a task and a job. And sometimes, you're so desperate to get something or get it moving, you think you can do it, and then it fails. Another piece where things don't go right is when there's no transparency, right? And that's a problem. And also managing expectations. Over-communicate, even when things are not going right, from both sides, right? So that's where the issues come in, from both sides, when expectations are not managed and people do not communicate when things are not going right. The other piece as well that sometimes gets things not going very well, it's managing the other third stakeholders, which, so in our case, it either can be the schools, or it can be government, right, that can hold you back. And when you don't know how to manage the third stakeholder, which you did not, when you came to the table, they were not there. When you're setting your objectives and your measurables, etc., they were not there. But they're a very big part, because we're going to someone's schools. And then things also can go wrong. So I'll say those are the things that I've really seen as being the critical ones that makes things fall apart. And also just management of money, right? That also has been the big one, where either one was not transparent with their cost at the beginning of what it takes, how much money it will take, or just not being good in managing the money. Not having good accounting processes or tracking of money going out. There's money going out for tea, but that tea sometimes, it's like almost like buying a farm of tea, but you're not aware that actually you're buying a tea farm. But it says tea there, it's a cost, and but like it's a lot of money going out for tea. Right. So those elements are really important to be at place, and that's why we've seen as pitfalls.
From our end, what we've seen before, Mosala has been talking about values, so each organization, they have their core values. And you realize in a partnership, then there are issues that come out, then you realize they're not in line with your values. So for this, an example of a partnership that didn't go too well was I don't know whether it's values that were in conflict, but communication from the beginning was right. Everything was so good, going very well. We were into the partnership 2 years. Then when we were looking to have a contract renewal, because we were working with this university, then there was a conflict of interest, and what they were proposing was not in line with our core values. So we had to take a lot of strength and call off the partnership. So at times the partnership may not go as planned, and sometimes you just agree that it's not going to work. Yeah, so from the beginning, like what Mosala said, we have, in most of the cases, like in 99% of our cases, we have a contract, an MOU just signed by both partners, laying down the expectations in terms of the budget, in terms of the activities, the timelines. So in most of the cases, you will find that you're not able to meet the deadlines, or you're not able to achieve because of other factors, elements. For instance, last year working with PNG, we are supposed to start the project in January, but we started in May because of the weather. It rains, it's flooded. It's dry, there's no food. So because we are working with nomadic pastoralist communities, they migrate from one area to the next looking for food. So when you're supposed to be working with girls, they are busy moving their families. So the other factors that are influencing our implementation, starting our activities. So we communicate and tell Joyce, she's my boss. She's the one I report to. I communicate to her in advance and tell her, you're going to have a no-cost extension. So if you're communicating early enough, then be able to manage even the expectations. The other thing that we've come to realize over time is that even our partners, they have bosses. So yes, there's a boss of a boss of a boss. And so, which in a way affect the way we are working as partners. So it's how we communicate and how we able to go back to the negotiating table and agree, this is not working, this is working, we can do better in this area, we can do this. Yes, thank you.
I think we've said a lot of this already, but I'll just keep hitting the point home about setting expectations up front and clear communication right off the top. My experience where things have gone poorly is that we are doing the Usain Bolt sprint, trying to just get this done because we're so excited about it. We've jumped the gun in announcing things that never actually came to fruition. A partner has been really excited to align with us, and then something happens, whether it's a staff change or whatever, and we've already kind of gone down the path of making it public, and it doesn't actually come through. And so we've taken a huge step back and realized that, and this is now, I'm talking about past life, current life, so mixing it all together, but in our current state with our program, we are taking it much more slowly, deliberately, intentionally with partners, and making sure that there is that communication set up front. Nothing is ever going to be public until we really know that there are MOUs signed and that this will come to fruition. And that is very important, so that it's not just about getting this announcement out, which is public awareness, but there's an actionable step that is taken as a result of this partnership. And so just making sure of that. And then just finally making sure that kind of on the other side of it, what is the partner going to get out of this, aside from just aligning with the mission, but making it very clear up front what the partner will get out of it, as I mentioned before. So how much are they going to be able to go to on the ground and see the project? Are they going to be able to do a press release with you? Are they going to be able to, are you going to fund them to travel to see what the work you're doing? Just making sure it's very clear up front what both sides are getting out of this, so that there's not confusion later, which I've seen time and again is not always clear, and you have to kind of overthink all the questions that might be asked on either side before committing.
There's one other piece of advice that I would probably offer. One of the more disastrous partnerships that we've experienced is that we actually went into a joint grant proposal writing opportunity with several partners. We had signed the MOU, we were all synchronized. One of the organizations had a brand new executive director come in and had a brand new board of chair come in. The grant was then funded, but this one partner did not align with the other three partners. This one partner, we had to go in and have a divorce. There was so much conflict, so much misalignment. But I, as the integrator, had made the assumption, because we had signed the MOU, we were still synchronized. So when there is a change of leadership, I think my learning is when there's a change of leadership, that part of the contract is null and void until it's been renegotiated. Just as war wounds off our back. Well, I think the one of the last topics that I would just like to get the perspective of the panel before we hand over the questions to you is this whole nebulous phrase of sustainability. Anybody else stressed about that? So what I would like to ask each of the panelists is, in your world, what does sustainability mean in your context, and how do you go about thinking that through with you and your partners? Tiffany.
I think there's a few different ways to think about sustainability. One is that you have a program or a nonprofit, something to fund in the long term, and you're not doing this for a short period of time. So you need to find various sources of funding to sustain that program. And it's scrappy sometimes. It's very rare you're going to find one large donor that's just going to pay for everything. So how can you collectively put that whole puzzle together to sustain your programming, if not to grow it? So there's sustainability in the program, and there's also you're going to try to likely scale that program. So how can you collectively piece together all the different partners you need to do that? And how can they not only just provide funding, but help you to grow that program through the partnership? That's kind of one thing. The second is just the financial sustainability of an organization. So bringing partners in, of course, bringing in a P&G. I don't think P&G is going to fold anytime soon, so that's great. It's sustainable right there, you think. But then there's lots of other smaller partners that could be really interesting as well. And I think it's just looking at, before jumping right in, thinking, is this really sustainable, or am I overly excited about something that may not come to fruition? Because that could be putting a lot of eggs in one basket that could fold, and then where do you fill that funding gap? So trying to be very thoughtful about some of the large promises that could be made as well. And then I think just from a programmatic partnership perspective, just working with organizations that you think are in this issue for the long haul. So not just, oh, this looks, for us, I keep going back to kind of what we were doing, but it can be a little bit of the shiny object. We have a principle that is a shiny object, but also the issue right now, when you've got the Me Too movement, and you've got, Stand With Girls around the world, it can be a hot button issue for an organization to jump into this pool right now. How do you sift through that and understand what they're really trying to do in the future, and try to find partners and organizations that really aren't just trying to jump into current events, but are trying to partner with you because they believe in this issue, and they will stick with you through thick and thin, through floods, and everything else that will stay with you, and aren't looking for just quick turns that are going to drive results that they can do a press release about, that they saved this community. Mm-hmm. How can you find partners that really want to make this a systemic change for the future? Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I guess breaking down the word sustainability, trying to be a professor, is really about giving something life for a much longer period, right? It means that there is external things, or with time, things will change, right? And how do you prepare for what you don't know might change, right? And usually sustainability becomes a threat when either policy change or attitude change, and as we're mentioning, change in leadership or institution, right? Because those three things that can change, they can really impact things. And I'll try to use an analogy to explain this. I speak in analogies. Even my team has a book with all the analogies that I use. So like a body, right? A body needs food, to continue, but also you need to exercise the body, right? What I used to do when I was 18, I can't do now since I'm 25, joking. 36, we're looking like a 25-year-old. And my body has told me a couple of things that what I used to do before, I cannot do. So as you are building your organization, it's important to also preempt. That's part of leadership and everything else, being able to preempt and envision, and trying to understand what potential roadblocks there could be, and then plan for those, right? So if you have a team and you know that, I'll make this example in the financial acumen, that your team, all of you are great in project management, but you don't have the financial acumen to do things, then roll up for a course or training or whatever it is to equip yourselves for that, right? As the organization grows, you need to envision what are the future resources that you're going to need, so that you are prepared for the future. For the projects that you're running, you need to understand as you're going through what are the challenges that you're facing, and then prepare for those, getting your partner to help you out with those. And that's pretty much almost the communication. But I find that money is an issue, training and capability of the staff is an issue, and also understanding policy. Right? Sometimes we get ourselves in hot waters with certain things as we don't understand policy.
I can see Lisa is giving me a red card, so I'll be very quick. So in terms of Asante Africa, I'm looking at sustainability in two ways. There's organizational sustainability, and then there's program sustainability. In terms of organization sustainability, we've seen the NGO sector landscape change in terms of the way the donors are changing, even their policies like laws in Kenya. Now we are talking about Public Benefits Act. Now they are requiring NGOs to have an income generating arm of the organization, and as long as you're going to plow back the profit into helping the communities. So that is one way. How well are you able to adapt to the changes that are coming with the laws in the country and even with the donor spectrum? So the other thing is in terms of program sustainability. Since we are working with schools and communities, one of the ways we ensure that our programs last even after phase out is having the buy-in from the board of management, from the communities, from the parents and the teachers, such in a way that even after we do 1 year or 2 years of implementation, the teachers can continue with the menstrual health education as part of the school program, and it has happened over the years. The other way is that as we are signing these contracts or these partnership with PNG, it is not just a 1 year contract. We actually did a study of our girls program, and what we found out was that projects that are done more than 2 years, they are more sustainable as projects compared to projects that is done for 1 year. So what we're looking for, and what we know we've been doing over the years, is that we're looking for partners who are much more willing to do 2 or 3 years project as compared to just 1 year project. Thank you.
Dum, dum, dum. It's your turn. Okay, we would love to entertain questions, and here's what we would like to ask you. Speak very loud. Tell us your name and what organization you're coming from. And if you have it for a specific individual, please let us know that as well. I saw a couple hands. Let's start with the woman with purple.
Hi, my name is Nuray Asante, and I'm from Vienna, coming from Austria, and my institution is European Institute for Sustainable Development. I wanted to share best practice in the field of youth projects in gender equality, and maybe give you a European perspective on how we run the projects. Maybe a little about the institution. Our values are our goal is to promote sustainable peace, sustainable development, pluralism, and to promote those, we have a special focus on youth participation and gender equality, because we believe that gender equality is a goal that, if you reach that, it also helps reaching other SDGs of the UN agenda. So, by the way, I will be also doing this presentation at the parallel event, so if anyone's interested, I could give out flyers. So what we did was, 4 years ago, we started with 2 preparation schools in Austria and in Germany. We had 2 schools, 10 students from each school, 5 boys, 5 girls, and we put them together. First, separate like in Vienna, we had a group and we gave the workshops, and we wanted to raise awareness and introduce them to the topic. What is gender equality? What is being done? And what is like the whole situation on earth about women's rights and violence against women too. And we did this separately in Germany and in Austria, and then we put the kids together in Vienna, and we took them to the United Nations to see the UN perspective of gender equality, what they are doing in terms of fighting for gender equality, and we brought them to House of the European Union and to see that what does the European Union do in terms of that. So afterwards, the project is called She for All, and we aim to mobilize the youth.
So let me respectfully interrupt. In one sentence, what is the best practice that you would like to share?
The best practice is this project. So we tell the girls and boys to speak to women leaders, to conduct interviews with them, because our aim is to mobilize them to do this.
Okay.
And they do that on their own. They conduct interviews and they try to find for themselves what does being a woman in a decision-making position mean.
Okay, great. And just so that the audience knows, when is your session?
It's on 14th March.
Okay.
At 7:30 a.m. and
Okay, so if anybody's interested, they'll come talk to you at the break.
Okay.
Great. Okay, let me, the woman in the white shirt, and then we'll jump over to this side.
Okay, my name is Lori Lynn Ross. I'm filling in for a donor, but I do have two questions. I represent an organization that I started a few years ago called Angel Skirts, which is, we can talk about later. I have a question, two other questions. I'll go very quickly. Are you ever interested in volunteers to come and work in Africa? That's one question. And the next question is, when you're talking about raising funds for a program, what kind of funds are you talking about? And I know they need to be sustained throughout years, but I'm absolutely clueless as to that. So what
Okay.
are the parameters and the ideas, it's amazing what you're doing, by the way.
I'll take the question about the volunteers on the ground because I actually feel very strongly about the type of volunteers who flock from the West to quote, go and feel good, and don't do anything for the individuals on the ground. So that might be politically very incorrect. We are very protective of the communities that we work with, in that if it's to capacity build or offer a skill to the staff or the coordinators or the women who are boots on the ground doing the work, then we're potentially interested. If it's a college group wanting to go lay brick, I would rather pay the fathers in the village to lay brick. So it's highly dependent on the volunteer opportunity, and you might have a different response. Let me see if anyone would like to respond regarding the donor piece.
Well, just to add to the volunteer piece, I'm not sure if you're asking from just a college kid or from like a donor perspective. Like if you're donating money, can you then go volunteer at the project perhaps?
Right.
In that regard, that's not, I wouldn't say it's more volunteering, but I know as a foundation, we have brought donors to programs, to projects to see the work. Which I think is really important. And that's kind of goes back to like starting with the framework, so that it's not, you're giving $100, you are flown across the country to see this work, but I think it kind of has a tiered approach to do that. So I think that's really important. I'm not sure I would consider it volunteering as much more as like being integrated in the work. And as far as kind of what we're looking for, were you asking about dollar like tiers, or more so kind of like what would the funding go towards?
Like what does the program cost? What's the range of what programs cost? Is that okay that I'm asking that here?
Oh, I think that's
Right.
Sure.
I mean, I can.
It's a fundraising.
I think I'm going to assume you would say it's quite varied and broad.
Right.
Specifically, I'll just talk about what we're doing. The fundraising platform that we have launched, we have individual projects. So Asante Africa is one of them that has applied. Our projects right now are between $5,000 and $50,000 on projects. So we're looking for not just to provide funding for operations for the future, but very much project-based, so an organization can apply for various projects. So we made it very specific so that we can get a number of specific projects that have measurable results that we can then show. And we're happy that we really want to tell those stories of what the project is and what's going on there. But every organization, I'm sure, is looking for.
But you're also looking for continuity that goes forward and all that.
Right.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. And Laura Lynn, happy to talk to you. Happy to talk with anybody afterwards for sure. Let me jump over to this side. You.
Okay. My question initially was on
What's your name?
Pyle, and I'm from AAUW, the American Association of University Women.
Awesome.
My question initially was on sustainability, but you asked that, so I'm gonna kind of jump on Tiffany's point on funding. And so we find that funders often want a little bit of ownership of projects and that brand, but we want to continue projects with other companies and to ensure that we have diversified funds. For example, we recently worked with Coca-Cola in salary negotiation programs for women, and then I met someone at Pepsi at an event trying to talk about the work that we did, and it was a little awkward because you don't want to work with Coca-Cola one year and Pepsi the other year. So how do you balance those interests?
That's So that looks like a good one for
Yes,
the corporate
yes.
partner, right?
Yes. Okay. The biggest reason why, as corporates or companies, whatever, will not want to work with someone who works with competition is mainly because of information flow.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you be working with us, like on an Always School program, chances are you will also be exposed to the innovation plan on Always in general, right? What's coming up, new launches, new initiatives, etc. So the problem is the information flow. Even though we do sign confidentiality, but that transfer of information is tricky when someone is also exposed. We're putting too much on our partners to always be able to manage this information because there's this contract. So to avoid risking exposing our partners to that, etc., we prefer that people don't work with our competitors. At the end of the day, we are in the marketplace, competing for the same consumer, etc., and stuff like that. And that information can lose market competitive advantage. So it's mainly because of that.
We're going to take one more question, and then we'll do closing thoughts. And then if anyone else has questions that would like to be around, we'll be here as well. Okay, 2, but we'll go fast. Mary and, okay.
Hi, I'm Mary McGovern, and I'm from VGIF. We're a funder of grassroots women's organizations. We're going to actually be focusing on organizations in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Malawi, and India. So we're focusing our funding when we had been sort of everywhere. And one of the big things that we're hoping to do is to form partnerships with others, not just with our grantees, of course, but with others, so that we can help our grantees develop their own capacity as organizations. So my question for the panel is, whilst we're a funder, we're still a small organization. We have a limited staff, so that means we have limited staff time to dedicate to building partnerships. And I know from my past life that partnerships can be one of the most time-consuming thing that you can engage in. So my question is, how do you, with a limited staff and limited resources organization, prioritize and get to a successful partnership from the potential array of partners that you could be working with? So how do you zone in and figure out that and use staff time to?
One of the ways that we're making sure, because Asante Africa is such a small organization, we only, in Kenya we are 6 permanent paid staff, then in Tanzania we are 8. So in Kenya what you're doing is we are identifying young people who've gone through, we have a leadership and entrepreneurship incubator project. These are like a 1-week conference where young people attend, and after that it's on personal development, entrepreneurship, and leadership. So after this training, we identify young people who are self-starters, and when they go back to their communities, they become like ambassadors of Asante Africa. So at the community level, we work with them. They are not our staff. We call them regional coordinators because we work in different counties. These are the people we use on the ground. So whenever we implementing a new project, we engage them, and they work on voluntary basis. And other than that, Anna seated, she's in San Francisco. Our office is in Kenya. Then we have different young people working in different counties in the country. We utilize the resources that we have, especially technology. We have online meetings, so staff don't have to be there physically for us to have meetings. We actually utilize lots of those. Then there's the invention of Google Documents, where you work on different documents from any part of the world. So what we are finding is that it's very easy to coordinate the staff, even with the Tanzanian team. We really meet like face to face, only maybe once in a year or twice in a year, but we're able to work together because you're using technology just to make sure that we are cost effective and have efficiencies.
Let me add on. I tease the African team because I call partnership developing a lot like the dating process. You might have a lot of first dates, And typically, what I try to do is we have our criteria and our values of who our potential collaboration partners could be based on certain values and projects. I work really hard to engage the staff on the ground, either as donors or partners would like to go see projects, once we get to sort of the second or third prospective date. And part of it is depending on if it's a funding partner, a data monitoring and evaluation partner, or a implementing partner. It really influences how we go those different steps. So, okay, really last question. What is your name?
I'm Spongile Mtembu from South Africa. I'm representing a movement called the Total Shutdown, which was started last year in June, and we had a march the 1st of August, Women's Month, where we approached our president in connection with GBV and femicide because it's very high in our country. As a movement, we are all volunteers, nobody's full-time employed. And we are there, not political, non-partisan, and our work is to agitate, motivate, mobilize, and hold government accountable. We've managed to put together around 150,000 women in a closed group. We are social media based, in a closed group, and we had 19 marches in our country, so even in small provinces. And my problem or my question is, when you get an organization like that, which is based on volunteering capacity, and we've got footprint in grassroots, how do we then partner? Because we really are volunteers. We are not like an established NGO or NPO.
Get established. I mean, honestly, either as a CBO or an NGO for the street cred.
Movements normally are not registered in South Africa.
I mean, yeah.
I'm going to take a long shot on this one.
Yeah.
One, you need to get registered because in whatever shape or form, even probably as an NGO or something, because the tricky part is that I'll just tell you in terms of simple, because I'm on the commercial side of things, right? So I need to write an invoice to someone, right? If I'm gonna, help out, or either an invoice or the purchase order. If I'm gonna give you money, and for that purchase order, I need your registration. I need to understand where you are because that invoice needs to capture text or whatever it is. Who do I send that invoice to? Who do I send the purchase order to? Who do I write up the check to? Right? Because when the money leaves in the account and when an accountant comes in and they're going through the books, they need to be able to trace and audit.
Just to interject, we did register an NPO, but we are not an NGO, so
Uh-huh.
we operate differently.
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
becomes very tricky to operate
Okay.
the two.
Okay.
But you're an entity.
We're an entity.
Yes, yes.
Okay, if that's the case, then great. Then there is, okay, it always come back to the objective that I've highlighted, right? So, and like I mentioned earlier on in terms of for us, and I can speak because that's what, from our point of view, we are focusing on improving girls' confidence during the puberty phase, right? We are not going and tackling all the other potential issues that women are facing in South Africa. We're not dealing with women in corporate world, etc. So for us, it's really looking at partners that will play within that space. And it's one of the things I'm going to tackle in the closing remarks. I think I'll bring it here to help with this question. Is that we have to be very clear as who we are approaching in terms of where they are and what is it they want to do. Because there are courses, and there are many courses that we're very passionate about that we need to address. And we know them very well. And we knock at all different doors, right, to try and get people in. But if you understand better who is looking to play in that space or willing to partner in that space or their mission objectives, it makes it easy. Because if you're gonna come to us for tackling, let's say, for example, issues of women in the workplace, not because we don't want to address those issues, we have to choose where you want to play. So you find those and then play in that space. It makes it much easier when you partner with the right people.
And go ahead and continue with your closing thoughts, since we're there.
All right, cool. So I really advise a lot of NGOs or NPOs looking into getting to this space. It's also understand that a lot of companies, they have specific business objectives, and understanding those business objectives is very critical because it just makes it very easy to win. And also know the policies of the land. It's important to understand in that space that you're playing in what the policies of the land to be able to effectively have the conversation, right? For example, in South Africa at the moment, thanks to your organization and many organizations that have come together and partnered and engaged with the government to remove VAT from sanitary pads, which is effective 1st of April, right?
Hallelujah.
Yeah, awesome.
That's awesome.
So
Can
understanding.
you come to Tanzania and help with that?
So, understanding the process of the land is very critical. And also just staff development and trying to have continuity as much as possible. Because that helps in building the capability, etc. I think it's probably better to have fewer staff that you can manage on long-term sustainable, but with very clear training and stuff of sustainability, and then see which other work you can have volunteers coming through, and then to make sure that you have a good management going through.
Okay, so two things. One, you need the partner needs you. It's a two-way traffic. Two, they may seem like, they may seem, they are big corporations, P&G. They're talking about Global Girls Alliance. They're big names, but they're human. You've seen Mosala, you've seen Tiffany, they're very human. The people in those offices, they're very human. Do not be afraid. Thank you.
I'll just add that, going back to your question, it is not easy, even for an organization like, you might think ours has a big name. We're very small and somewhat lean. Lean is better than scrappy, which I use a lot. And it's hard, and I go back to managing teams where I tried to do everything, including social media, and it doesn't work. You have to have someone dedicated. So this is a lot of work. This effort. I know a lot of time the executive director, the CEO is spending all their time doing development work, and it's really hard. So wherever possible, whether that's an intern all the way through having a contractor, anywhere you can dedicate someone's time to helping do this, I do think there is a lot of value in it, because there is so much to be done there, and otherwise you're pulling people away from the real programmatic work just to focus on that. So that's just one thing I'll say, is I've learned that over time, that I didn't, it is important to put resources toward that. And then I think the other thing is just being open to creative ways of doing things. Just to plug our program again, we try to be very creative in how we're not a grant-making organization as a foundation, so we came up with a way to still provide, we know money is what really creates the change, and that is what supports communities. So we had to kind of creatively put forth a way that we could work together, and our whole model is based on partnering. And we had to just come up with this to find a way to create a fund so we can drive funding to the field. And that is all reliant upon partnering with organizations like yours, to partnering with organizations like yours, to collectively pull everyone together. So I think just creativity is also key in some of this, and don't be afraid to ask for things that have never been done before, because sometimes it does work.
I think the one other thing, as a small nonprofit, quite often we can assume that why would an organization that's really big want to partner with us? I would really encourage everyone to think about, what are the assets that you have in your organization that make you unique, that make you strong, that make you worthy of partnering with a larger organization. And quite often, you are much more powerful than initially you might realize. So walk in, shoulders back, chin up, and sell it, baby, sell it. So, and don't be afraid, because I used to be in Silicon Valley as a vice president. People wouldn't come up and talk to me. At the end of the day, we are all people. And we're in this business because we want to be change makers. Every one of you in this room are here because you want to create a new normal for the future. So with that, I will mention that we do have a sign-in list that is at the back of the room if you would like in any way to stay connected with the work with the Global Girls Alliance, the Procter & Gamble Partnership, or Asante Africa. Put your name on there and we'll for sure be connected. When we conclude, we can go out into the main room. The next group will be quickly trying to get into here. But we are extremely grateful that you're here. And I'm gonna do a facilitation round of applause. Okay? On the